There have always been toxic rivalries, explosive crashes, and intense controversies between teammates in F1.
And the inside they have crashed!
What a stupid action! I'm going home.
But what I'm about to show you is on a whole nother level.
Golden rule number one, don't run into your teammate.
Esteban Ocon hasn't exactly got the best reputation for getting along with his teammates.
Two Alpines going for it. Fernando Alonso almost in the wall.
There his teammates there, and detonation for the Alpines. That is Esteban Ocon chancing one at 48.
But his relationship with Sergio Perez was particularly spicy.
And right on board with Ocon towards Eau Rouge, and once
Crazy.
again they have touched. Two Force Indians collide there, and there's big damage.
Both damaged.
To Perez's front wing.
Both damaged.
Honestly, what the f this guy doing?
It felt like they were crashing almost every race. And to make things even worse, the team was in chaos behind the scenes. Earlier that season, their team, Force India, had gone into administration and was only saved when Lawrence Stroll, father of everybody's favourite crash connoisseur, Lance Stroll, stepped in to bite the team. Everybody knew Lance would be taking one of the seats the following season, which meant one of the current drivers, either Perez or Ocon, was about to lose their spot on the grid. So, by the time they arrived in Singapore, both drivers were fighting not just for points, but for their future in Formula One. After a decent qualifying, Perez lined up in 7th, with Ocon just behind in P9, and it didn't take a genius to work out something explosive was about to go down. But as the lights went out, I don't think anybody could have guessed just how quickly disaster would strike.
It's lights out, and away we go. Even start from the front two. Sebastian Vettel challenging Max Verstappen. They get very close this time. They don't touch. Verstappen just makes first corner ahead of Sebastian Vettel. They're looking up behind as they all thread their way through the first three corners. Sebastian Vettel into the wall. Goes Esteban Ocon. Did he make contact with his teammate Sergio Perez? They were right close together again.
They didn't even last 3 corners. Ocon was out of the race almost instantaneously, and I think this interview after the crash is more than telling.
Awful to see you back here in the pit lane. What happened?
Well, I think it's clear, and I think everyone saw what happened. I'm not going to comment yet. I want to see the images and discuss with the team first, so we'll see.
And I can't say the Force India team principal looked thrilled. And Perez wasn't done there, because he got up to this later in the race.
I thought he found a way, but no! They'd managed to crash! Perez was moving over to the left-hand side, and he's got severe damage to his Force India.
But as the season came to a close, it was Perez who held onto his seat into 2019, leaving Esteban without a drive. But I don't think that's the last you'll see of him, because we're going to get on to some of his utterly mind-numbing incidents later that earned him the title of the worst teammate in F1. June the 12th, 2011, the Canadian Grand Prix. McLaren had not one, but 2 British world champions in the lineup, with Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton both eager to prove themselves over the other. The conditions this weekend were brutal, with torrential rain flooding the circuit, setting the ultimate stage for chaos to unfold. As the race got underway with Hamilton in 5th and Button in 7th, it only took mere seconds for the first incident to unfold.
And Vettel knew that, but so did Alonso. Alonso goes to the right. Vettel has the turning point to the corner though. And behind him we got a McLaren right up alongside, and he's touched. Webber is round. Mark Webber, and that's Lewis Hamilton. He's always in the wars, is Lewis, and that won't go down very well.
But that was only the start of it. After a tangle with Michael Schumacher on lap 7,
Lewis gets wide and Michael comes across. You can see he's pushed Lewis wide.
Yeah, and Lewis will lose out to Button, and will he lose out to anybody else?
Hamilton had dropped to 7th, now behind his teammates. But the gap was closing, and closing fast. And then, just 1 lap later, Hamilton made his move.
I think in that case, there's no question as we see him. Oh, it's a McLaren's touch! That is, Lewis Hamilton obviously with suspension damage, puncture. I'd be surprised if he makes it round to back into the pits, but
I can't say either driver sounded too happy on the radio.
Jensen put me in a wall. Jensen put me in a wall.
What is he doing?
Who could have possibly guessed that they'd blame each other? Hamilton was forced to retire, but somehow Button kept it going. And not only did he keep it going, but he produced one of the greatest comeback drives in Formula One history.
Truly Jenson Button keeping a watching brief, and Sutil goes in too deep. Button comes up the inside. Button sails past him, somehow finding enough grip. Button goes the long way round. Is he ahead of him? Yes, he is. Button up into 2nd place. Has Vettel got what it takes to hold him off?
I think Vettel's got wide.
Yeah,
he's got
that.
wide.
He turned in too late. He got the tyres. Button leads the Grand Prix. It's a sensational drive for Button. Surely one of the finest races of his life and the best Grand Prix of his spectacular career.
Ferrari and chaos. These days it feels like the two go hand in hand.
Stay out, stay out, stay out.
But in 2019, it wasn't just the countless strategical blunders that defined them, it was their own drivers, Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc, who turned a promising season into a civil war. On one hand, you had Vettel, the four-time world champion, trying to assert himself as the #1 driver. On the other hand, you had Leclerc, the young hotshot who was never short on raw pace and was clearly the future of the Scuderia. But one thing is for sure, neither driver would step aside for the other. From ignoring team orders to refusing to give each other a tow, they spent all year trying to one-up each other. But it wasn't until Brazil that tensions truly boiled over. After taking a new power unit, Leclerc was starting down in P14, while Vettel lined up at the front of the grid in second. So surely there wouldn't be any Ferrari team drama this race, right? Well, Leclerc wasn't going down without a fight.
Away we go, and Sebastian Vettel did get a better start, but it's a short run down to the line, and Verstappen covers him off. Hamilton is trying to squeeze round the outside, and does so. There's a look up behind, but it's Verstappen, Hamilton, Vettel, and then Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo. Leclerc is up to 13th already on the inside, trying to squeeze past the Renault. He might just have done it, he has, and now he's got past Lando Norris as well. And there he goes down the inside on Romain Grosjean. Here goes Leclerc, ladies and gentlemen, and up into 6th place for the Ferrari.
By lap 15, he was already in P6, hunting down his teammates. Honestly, Charles looked unstoppable. And when an engine failure on Bottas's Mercedes brought out a late safety car, suddenly the Ferraris were within touching distance. And then, after 5 laps of pure tension, Leclerc made his move.
8 points, and at the moment, no, he just wants to get past his teammates, which he does. Charles Leclerc down the inside of Sebastian Vettel, and he moves himself up into 4th place. Vettel will get DRS down the Retta Imposta. Can he now fight back? Leclerc made it very tough earlier. For the, oh no, he's got a puncture. They made contact, and Charles Leclerc's got a puncture caused by contact with his teammate Sebastian Vettel.
It's actually a broken front suspension as well, steering arm or something.
Man, that was painful to watch. You only need to see Leclerc's on board to tell he was absolutely livid.
What the hell?
Man, Vettel was so angry, he even switched to German.
Puncture, what the hell is he doing? Sorry. Puncture. Fine, go with the sign. Fine, fuck me now.
But this wasn't the first time Vettel tangled with a teammate, because almost a decade prior, he had a crash that had much more catastrophic consequences. The year was 2010, and Red Bull were finally title contenders. Driving alongside Vettel was F1 veteran Mark Webber, and the duo had come out swinging that year, with multiple wins, blistering pace, and real hopes of a first championship for Red Bull. But with McLaren and Ferrari still in the hunt, every point mattered as much as the next.
Welcome to Istanbul Park. Round 7 of the Formula 1 World Championship.
After an exceptional qualifying session, Webber lined up in pole on race day, followed by the McLaren of Hamilton ahead of Vettel in 3rd. After a tense first stint, Vettel managed to bag P2 thanks to a brilliant undercut on Hamilton.
And look at that, Vettel's through. We're back with a 1-2 for Red Bull,
giving Red Bull the perfect chance to claim another 1-2 finish and extend their championship lead. Now, all they had to do was just bring it home, but that was easier said than done. It was clear Vettel had more pace and was just itching to snatch the win from Webber, and so the German made his move.
Here as we see Vettel pulling a move, and Webber's left the door wide open.
Oh dear, they've come together! Webber and Vettel have come together. That's Vettel going out, Webber going out. What was going on there?
I think the reaction of the pit wall says it all, and Vettel didn't hold back on the radio.
What the f*** are we doing here? What a stupid action! I'm going home. You.
Somehow Webber managed to keep it going, and to be fair, he still managed to clinch 3rd place, but that hardly mattered. What should have been an easy 1-2 for Red Bull turned into a complete disaster, handing their rivals a perfect result in the process. While Vettel and Red Bull still went on to ultimately clinch the championship, one more DNF like Turkey could have changed the entire outcome of the season. But let's just say that wasn't the last time two Red Bulls collided in spectacular fashion, and the next time it happened, it was even more explosive. But we'll get onto that later. If you thought that Esteban Ocon's relationship with Sergio Perez was bad, his partnership with Pierre Gasly took things to a whole nother level. And this rivalry didn't just span a few seasons, it's a story nearly 2 decades in the making. With both drivers being French and the same age, it's no surprise they spent plenty of time battling each other during their early karting days. But what started as a friendship built on their love of racing quickly turned sour once their rivalry became more intense. The two were battling for points, for championships, and even for sponsors. And as Gasly put it later, I started to beat him and he didn't like it. Now, fast forward to 2023 and somehow both drivers found themselves under the same roof, racing for the French team Alpine. Honestly, with their history, their relationship felt like a ticking time bomb. But to be fair, their first season was surprisingly calm. Sure, there was some flashpoints.
Spins Fernando Alonso around. The two Spanish drivers making contact, and there is Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly out of this race too. But Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly took each other out.
But nothing a little bit of PR couldn't handle. But 2024, that was a different story. And nowhere was that clearer than the Monaco Grand Prix. Gasly was starting in P10, with Ocon just behind in P11, both in a great place to try and grab some points for the team. But before the very first lap was over, Ocon did the unthinkable.
On board Pierre Gasly, that is Esteban Ocon chancing one at Portier. The two Alpines come together.
What did he do? What did he do? What did he try to attack?
He went for a gap that just didn't exist. It was reckless, desperate, and honestly, completely unnecessary, with the damage ending his race before it had really begun. It was clear that the team couldn't function with two drivers who didn't respect each other on track, never mind as teammates. And just shortly after the Monaco Grand Prix, Alpine announced that Ocon would be leaving the team at the end of the season. Now, back to Red Bull. By 2018, the team once again found themselves in an all-too-familiar situation. They had a car capable of winning, and two incredibly fast drivers in Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen, who would stop at nothing to prove themselves over the other. The on-track tension had been bubbling ever since Max's debut with Red Bull during the 2016 season, a race which, as you'll see a little later, he won in epic fashion. While Ricciardo was still undoubtedly blisteringly fast, it was the first real time he had some competition on the other side of the garage. But he wasn't going down without a fight. While 2018 got off to a chaotic start for both drivers, an early win in China gave Ricciardo the perfect chance to reassert himself as Red Bull's #1, and heading into Baku, he made those intentions crystal clear. In qualifying, he bested Verstappen by just a few tenths, and on race day, he looked to have the upper hand. Well, that was until lap 6, when Verstappen did this.
Verstappen's looking down the inside. Ricciardo has to back off and let him through. Otherwise, those two are coming together. That's a brilliant move from Verstappen.
From that point on, the two Red Bulls were locked into an all-out dogfight, and just a few laps later,
On board with Daniel Ricciardo, who might sense that his teammate is there for the taking. He's going to have to go the long way round turn 1.
but that wasn't the end of it. Oh no.
Max Verstappen struggling. Ricciardo's passing him into turn 1, and the two Red Bulls might have touched there as well. Verstappen aggressively defending against his teammate. There's no team orders down at Red Bull today. Verstappen stays ahead.
It was clear neither was willing to back down, and when two teammates are so utterly desperate to beat each other, there's only ever one way it ends.
But he's going to try and dive down the inside. They have crashed. They've gone into each other. Daniel Ricciardo late braking, couldn't stop in time. Max Verstappen was right in front of him.
Team principal Christian Horner was absolutely livid, and both drivers looked shell-shocked. It was an utter disaster for Red Bull, and honestly, this felt like the turning point. For most of the season onwards, Verstappen took control. He was faster, sharper, and looked to be the lead Red Bull driver on track. It's no surprise then that Ricciardo decided to walk away at the end of 2018, instead signing with Renault for the following season. But despite all of the on-track tension, there was still mutual respect and even friendship between the two drivers, which is more than I can say for this next rivalry, because I don't think it could have gotten any more combustible. I don't think many teammate rivalries come close to the intensity of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. What started as a childhood friendship built on shared dreams of reaching Formula One turned into one of the most bitter and explosive rivalries the sport has ever seen. After 2 years of coming up short, Rosberg had finally had enough. Over the winter, he had reinvented himself, mentally sharper, more focused, and absolutely desperate to beat Lewis at all costs. And to start 2016, he was untouchable. 4 races, 4 wins, and heading into round 5 in Spain, he had a commanding 43-point lead over his teammates. But don't think for 1 second Hamilton was going to back down.
But now the battle for pole position. Rosberg has it at the moment. Hamilton was on pole in 2014. Hamilton crosses the line. He's on pole in 2016.
And there we had it. Hamilton on pole with Rosberg just behind. The tension was unbearable, and as the two drivers lined up on race day, everybody knew something cataclysmic was about to go down.
And it's lights out and away we go. It was a super start from Nico Rosberg. Hamilton's got going as well, moves over to try and cut off his teammate, who now slips behind him a toe. Round the outside goes Nico Rosberg into turn 1, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. It's round turn 3 we go, and it's Nico Rosberg and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate. The two Mercedes come together.
That was just brutal. Their race didn't even last 4 corners. The team was devastated, the crowd was shocked, and both drivers couldn't believe what had just happened. But if one positive came out of this incident, it was that a certain Dutchman went on to claim his first ever F1 victory.
At 18 years and 227 days old, Max Verstappen wins a Formula One Grand Prix.
But that was hardly any consolation for Mercedes. As the season reached its climax, Rosberg ultimately emerged victorious, but it came at a cost. The friendship was gone, the respect was shattered, and even though Rosberg retired from F1 at the end of that year, the two drivers still don't see eye to eye to this day. It really puts into perspective just how competitive F1 drivers are. When you're willing to crash into your own teammate for a shot at victory, that's a whole different level. And speaking of crashing, check out this video on the king of Formula One crashes, because he put all other incidents to shame.